It's Mark from Team Primetime, and I want to welcome you to a little episode of something I like to call Taming of the Brew, where today I'm going to take something that was just kind of an idea and we're going to play it through 5 matches and see if we can eke out 3-2 or better, and just to see if the idea has legs or not. Me and Dougie kicked around the idea of, what's a cool companion to build around? And everyone's seen Karuga and Luris in the past, and Yorion, and Gigantas and everything. But I wanted to play with my friend here, Lutri, the Spell Chaser, because, Commander makes such good content. Why can't we play with one-ofs here in Pioneer? So, Lutri the Spell Chaser's deck building requirement to be your companion is that you can only have one of every non-land card in your deck. So we get to have a fairly consistent Dimir mana base with kind of what I usually play, 4 Watery Grave, 4 Shipwreck Marsh, some of the spell lands. I don't normally play the Pathways, but this is something I was really interested in trying. But something we're going to do here is we're going to give up a little bit of the consistency that we would normally have in Dimir Control. We don't get 4 Fatal Push anymore. We don't get, 3 to 4 Shark Typhoons. We have to kind of supplement here and there. And here's some changes that we've kind of made. So we don't have 4 Fatal Push. So we're going to play a Fatal Push, a Cut Down, a Bloodchief's Thirst. And kind of my 4th Fatal Push is I'm thinking Rona's Vortex and Fading Hope will kind of pull double duty. But what's also neat is I can use Fading Hope to bounce Lutri to my hand because, well, if you don't know what Lutri does, when I cast it, I can copy a spell that's on the stack. So if I can maybe bounce it to my hand and use it multiple times, well, I can get some cool effects. Spells that we already have like multiple versions of, so we'll do like a split of Sinister Sabotage, Saw It Coming. Only getting 1 Narset Parter Avails is probably fine because we're not going to do the Gaia Reach Sanitarium mana base. Most of the time, you don't run more than 1 of the same board wipe anyway, so none of this really changes. We have gone from playing 3 to playing 4 because of some of the aggro decks being more prevalent in the meta. We only have 1 Shark Typhoon, so we're going to play a Chrome Host Seedshark, which kind of does a similar thing, but it makes an incubator token that we can then turn into a creature later. We only get 1 Dig Through Time, where I would normally play 2, so we get to play 1 Treasure Cruise instead. But then the removal spells, we get to do a good split here. We have Power Word Kill, we have Shieldred's Edict, we have Go for the Throat, we have a Drown in the Loch. Because we only have 1 of all the spells in our deck, something I wanted to try that would maybe help us dig to maybe the exact card we needed was to have a few more spells in the 2-drop slot that would help us churn through things. So I'm playing a Moment of Truth, which is a card that I thought was very interesting. It's kind of like a bad expressive iteration, but it's an instant speed. So I get to put a card in my graveyard, which is beneficial for what I normally like to do for Dimir Control. Put 1 card in my hand and put 1 card on the bottom of my library. And then we also have a Tainted Indulgence. And since we only get 1 Memory Deluge, we play a Behold the Multiverse. So there are a few cards here that are going to help us turn through our deck. Sideboard, I get 1 of a bunch of different things. So we have a little bit of Hand Hate with Duress and Thoughtseize, some more counter spells with Aether Gust to stay Infiltrate, Mystical Dispute, big hammer style creatures like Hullbreaker Horror, Shieldred the Apocalypse, Cletus Trader of Get, the Scarab God for when it becomes necessary, 1 extra board wipe for Path of Peril, definitely good in the Convoke matchup, and some targeted removal for when we're going to see some of the really fast low to the ground white decks, kind of like Noxious Grasp and Raven Enfeeblement. Well, that's the deck. That's what we're going to see through 5 matches. So, as always, we love that you came out and watched our video. Like, comment, subscribe, follow us on Twitter, on Instagram, and give us a shout out if you ever see us out in the wild. We love to interact with everyone who enjoys our content. So I'll see you in round number 1. So here we are with round number 1. I have a very reasonable opening 7, and I won the die roll, so I definitely think this is a great place to start. My opponent mulligans to 6, so I feel good where I'm starting, so let's just see how the game plays out. Let's see here. So obviously I'm going to start on the tapped Watery Grave. I'm probably going to sequence Hive of the Eye Tyrant. Using Siphon Insight on my turn 2 is basically a good play. Kind of get some more info on what my opponent's deck is doing. My opponent goes double Spiral Bluff Canal into Thing in the Ice, which lets me know that they're on Phoenix. I select Opt when I could have taken pieces of the puzzle, and I think both options are fine, but I just kind of wanted some more action. Taking Sot coming off the Narset there just to have some more things to do. Narset against a deck that likes to draw a lot of cards is very good, so I'm really glad that was in my opening hand. And now just going into these turns, I have a lot I can do. My opponent has a Thing, has a Shredder, gonna resolve pieces of the puzzle, kind of set up for a few things. They take Treasure Cruise and Spell Pierce off of that pieces, so I know they're gonna have a Pierce, but I get to kill the Ledger Shredder, which is good. And I use their Opt, which is gonna draw their Spell Pierce out, which is totally fine. Their Thing is one counter from flipping, but I draw the Fading Hope off the Narset, which is awesome. So now I'm sitting with Sot coming and Takanuma. Now, if I were smart, I would have played the Chrome Host Seedshark before I Fading Hoped the Thing in the Ice, but that's just where we stand on that one. Now I could technically Chrome Host and Siphon Insight. I really feel like Chrome Host Seedshark is a card I'm not that experienced to play with, so I'm not thinking about getting the most value out of it, and I think I'm playing with it kind of like it's a Shark Typhoon. So now at this point in the game, taking pieces of the puzzle is definitely where I want to be, and getting Treasure Cruise plus Fatal Push here is awesome. I'm going to be able to Treasure Cruise here and still have Fatal Push. My opponent has 2 cards in hand, 3 mana up, but I'm just content here to just pass. My opponent plays the Arclight Phoenix. I can just lose Narset here, or I bounce the Phoenix, which is also perfectly fine. I wonder when am I gonna just play this Seedshark? I'm trying to hardcast the Shark Typhoon, which is obviously just a good spot against Phoenix to be in, especially since their things are both stuck on 4 counters still. There's so many ways that I can just block the Phoenix here. Fatal pushing the Thing in the Ice and then just getting a 1/1 is pretty great. Narset being able to stay on 1 counter through this whole game has, I think, done a lot to just kind of lock it up. Now that I have a Shark Typhoon and a Chrome Host Seedshark, every spell I play is just buku value. And Chrome Host Seedshark, something that I have always just really liked about the card is that it blocks Arclight Phoenix pretty profitably. And I also have a Cling to Dust in my hand, so I can possibly, get this Galvanic Iteration gone. But instead they're casting it, and I don't know what spell they could possibly have to maybe get some value here. But instead, transform my Incubator token into a Phyrexian, and we're just going for gas here. We have a Ritual, a Takanuma. I could escape my Cling to Dust. Behold the Multiverse is foretold. I don't really know where my opponent thinks they can go from here. But I am interested. They're continuing to play it out. If they flip the Thing in the Ice, obviously there's some recourse for how far they can go. So they were attacking with the Shark Typhoon, obviously, so I have a 1/1 blocker, I have a 2/4. I can make a 4/4 blocker with the Behold the Multiverse. Even if I don't get to draw the cards, like just having a flying 4/4 in this matchup's awesome. I'm not sure. Here we go. My opponent, plays the tap all the Storm Giants. Cast Behold the Multiverse, get the Chrome Host Seedshark, and now I'm just making big blockers. We're just swinging in, and we get them to 2. In theory, I could have activated the Hive and then won, but I did not do that. But we're doing things here. Gonna flashback this Cling to Dust. Go ahead and get this Arclight Phoenix out of the graveyard. And my opponent concedes. Right. So, game 2. I'm going to talk about some sideboarding a little bit. Phoenix post-board definitely becomes more like a control matchup. So I want to take out things like Fading Hope, Censor. Fading Hope, obviously bad. I'm just bouncing things back to their hand. I actually take out the Chrome Host Seedshark, which I think in retrospect was wrong. Cut the Meat Hook Massacre, cut the Torrential Gearhulk, cut Shadow's Verdict. Shadow's Verdict, doesn't do anything about Phoenixes, even though my opponent will board down on a few. I know they're going to bring in things like Crackling Drake, so that still doesn't deal with that. But bringing in, a Shieldred the Apocalypse, a Go Blank, a Thoughtseize, a Duress, Ashiok Dreamrender for a little bit more graveyard hate, and a Mystical Dispute. And looking at my hand here, I have 2 lands, Behold the Multiverse, a Mystical Dispute, Memory Deluge, Cling to Dust. I think I have the tools in this hand. So I think we're just going to run it and see how we move through here. My opponent starts on tap Spikefield Caves. So, I mean, that makes a lot of sense. I did draw my 3rd land on my first draw step, which, gotta absolutely love that. Opponent Things in the Ice. I'm just going to go ahead and get value out of this Mystical Dispute. I don't want to see, in retrospect, I think because I started on the Clearwater Pathway, I could have just Bloodchief's Thirst Thing in the Ice, and I think that would have been perfectly fine. But that isn't the play I made. But so my opponent pieces, had I, saved Mystical Dispute for pieces, I would have been in a much better spot. My opponent took a Mystical Dispute and another pieces of the puzzle off the pieces, so obviously they're in a better spot than I am. I'm sure that my opponent should not be able to counter my Bloodchief's Thirst here, so that's a good spot to be in. They could technically counter my Go Blank if they had, something else, so I just kind of let that go. I think what I'm trying to go for here is letting my opponent fill up more of the graveyard so that I can get more value out of this Go Blank. Cast this Behold the Multiverse here. Describe both to the top because that's all very good. Getting rid of Crackling Drake, and now my opponent just doesn't really have a whole lot going on in their hand. The only threat they have is I think they had the Ledger Shredder and a Brazen Borrower, which are all things that I'm not really that concerned with. I know my opponent still has a Mystical Dispute in hand. And there's double Phoenix in the bin. So I'm going to want to get, this Go Blank to actually succeed here. And just, we Hail Mary there, and my opponent doesn't have like a Negate or a Make Disappear. But I had the mana open for the Spell Pierce, which is really, the ideal thing to want to do there. Patience in these kind of matchups is everything you want, and that's the confirmation there that my opponent had the Spell Pierce. Now, just firing off a Memory Deluge, finding the pieces I want. Not taking Narset there is kind of tricky, but I knew I couldn't just go ahead and play it. But getting the Hall of Storm Giants, obviously a good late game threat. We're going to get to that point in the game, so that's where we want to be. Shieldred's Edict firing off, getting a full price Mystical Dispute. That's just how it goes sometimes. But now my opponent's down to 1 card, and I can't imagine it's that great. But now I get the value of drawing on the Loch, and I'm probably going to get the Rona's Vortex, tuck this Brazen Borrower. That doesn't look to be the play I'm going to make. I'm just doing a little draw-go action here. All right, I'm at 8. My opponent has a 3-turn clock, so I'm definitely in a good spot here. My opponent's digging. It looks like they're trying to, so they get to resolve Treasure Cruise, which is actually a good time for me. The fact that I can counter this means my opponent's not going to really go anywhere. I know they have no cards in hand, so this is the time to Rona's Vortex and tuck the Brazen Borrower, and now I have nothing to worry about. I can actually just start firing off with the Hall, but it's not what I do. I know I have a turn, or probably 2 of reprieve, so just cashing in my Memory Deluge while I know that my opponent can't do anything is a really good spot to be in. And we're going to start with the Hive. We're just going to take chip shots. I know we're still not on they were on a 3-turn clock no matter what, but I think this was fine to fire in with the Hall, and then to also have interaction left up. I know my opponent has Ledger Shredder and a land now, so we're just firing in. If my opponent ever Ledger Shredders, I have 3 kill spells in hand, so I think I just get to fire off at will. This is a very commanding spot to be in as Dimir Control. I've always felt that Phoenix was a very positive matchup. So it's kind of cool to see that the matchup is playing out this well, even though the deck loses a lot of consistency with Lutri as my companion. And there's actually a lot of times here where I probably lose value by not putting Lutri in my hand right here before I Treasure Cruise, but I'm just so far ahead that I don't think about it. And I'm down to about 6.5 minutes on my clock, so I do just want to end the game. The Sod coming here on the Lightning Axe is probably the nail in the coffin, since I can exile this Arclight Phoenix. Still have Otawara. Still have a Hall of Storm Giants. If my opponent ever plays what I think, they should probably have at least one Hall of Storm Giants. Then I know that I'm going to be able to swing for the fences here. My opponent's gotten to the point in the game where they have hard cast a Arclight Phoenix, and I just have a way to kill it, and then I can Ashy out and Dream Render and Exile, and after they mill 4 cards of their deck, then they're going to only have 8 cards left in library. So I don't think my opponent has any outs left. I'm just going to hold up, go for the third and pass. I think I'm going to have enough lands to activate Hive and Hall. But let me see here. Let me do a quick count. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 for the Hall. I would not have enough to activate Hall and Hive on my next turn, but my opponent was definitely dead. 3 cards in hand, 7 cards in library. I mean, I was still at 5, and I think we had exiled the majority of the threats they still had left in the deck. So that's a really good spot to be in. We start these 5 rounds up 1-0. So let's see if we can keep that hype train rolling. We didn't get to see Lutri do anything really cool that game or this match, but I think there were moments that I didn't capitalize on value. Still kind of fresh with how I wanted to play this Lutri deck. So maybe in later rounds we'll see that I got to get a little bit more value out of having a companion available. After a really great round 1, here we are in round 2. I won the die roll again, obviously in Pioneer, great place to be. And I open up with Fetid Pools, 4 lands, Consider, and Behold the Multiverse, saw it coming. I have ways to draw into more cards and a little bit of interaction. I think on the play, this is a great spot to be. So let's see how game 1 goes. My opponent kept 6. So obviously, when you start and you're up a card, you already feel better. I see a swamp, so I instantly think that maybe my opponent's a Thoughtseize gamer. So I want to hide this Behold the Multiverse so I can use it for later. See, so we're in second swamp, and my opponent signs in blood. So now I have to think that my opponent is on some kind of mono black control. So now I can hold up Saw It Coming, or I can use this Behold the Multiverse if it plays out. Liliana the Veil. I don't know why I just didn't. Well, I do know why I didn't saw it coming, because I wanted to get value out of the Shieldred's Edict. But in retrospect, I should have just countered this Liliana. I'm still going to lose a card because of this, and now I had to lose 2 cards. Definitely a mistake on my part. But no, now my opponent has 3 cards in graveyard, so Drowning the Loch is probably a live card, except for when we see Shieldred. And Shieldred, I'm just going to Fading Hope that and keep moving along. We cast the Behold the Multiverse. We get 2 lands. So now we're holding Drowning the Loch. So this is a good plan on my part because I know my opponent is going to recast the Shieldred. Interesting that I still chose to cash in that way. Maybe just trying to get more out of the Drowning the Loch later on. I should have Field of Ruin the Urborg and then drowned. That was totally, I think, in retrospect, the wrong play. But now we're going to Gear Hulk, saw it coming on the sword. Drawing. There's so many times when having Gear Hulk in your opening hand just feels like the worst thing ever. But having Torrential Gear Hulk, on turn 7 feels awesome. And now I have a Drown in the Loch when my opponent has 5 cards in their graveyard. I change the equation, which I can now get value off of. And now I can Lutri for like a double Drown in the Loch if that ever comes up. I'm not sure how many times I'm going to get that opportunity ever. But, just having the extra body there is good. Countering the Liliana, because I have to keep the Torrential Gear Hulk alive. And now at this point, I know I have lethal if I put Lutri into play. So, Lutri actually didn't function as more than like an ambush viper, or there's probably some 3/2 flash creature that I'm not thinking of, but just getting it into play to end the game. So that feels like a really good start. I'm down about almost 2 minutes against Mono Black, which is probably not where I really want to be, but let's see how game 2 goes. So here we are with game 2 of this match against Mono Black, right? So this is the grindy matchup, so we got to bring in the things for the grindy matchup. I bring in the Scarab God, I bring in Shieldred the Apocalypse, and I bring in a Go Blank. And I cut, they didn't seem very creature heavy, so I'm taking out Ritual of Soot, taking out a Cut Down, I'm taking out a Change the Equation, The only two I really saw was Sign in Blood, and countering that just seems silly. So yeah, I'm cutting those, and we're looking at this opening hand. I definitely think I probably keep this. It's very expensive, and I probably get punished for it. But we'll see how it plays through. In retrospect, probably should have mulliganed this because I was really holding it for the Behold the Multiverse. Um, I think, long story short, I think any Dimir Control hand that has Torrential Gearhulk in your opening hand is probably a losing proposition, and I probably didn't set myself up positively when I kept this hand. Um, Especially since I have an 8th card just already available in my companion zone. But I'm making land drops, which is something that I'm definitely good with here. My opponent does get a Castle Loch online, so I mean they now start doming themselves for 5. But I only want to let them get 1 activation off this, so I let them hit themselves for 5, and now I still have Shieldred's Edict up, so I know I can get some value. My opponent has a Graveyard Trespasser, which I know I have a Shieldred's Edict for, which feels pretty good. Because Graveyard Trespasser is one of those threats in the control matchup that feels abysmal because they it's going to be a 2-for-1 no matter what. But now I have a Shieldred the Apocalypse, and I just hope that I can get good value off of this. But my opponent has the Swift End. The trick with Rona's Vortex is it can't save your own creature, which really stinks. But that's the world we're living in there. My opponent hits the Shieldred's Edict before I could Gearhulk get the Edict back. In theory now, I might just have to... Okay, so I'm Tainted Indulgencing here. I don't really know what the point of that was. I think I was definitely better off just holding up Gearhulk and then just ambush Vipering. I think that was probably my best plan that I chose not to do. But now I have a Gearhulk that could set up a Rona's Vortex. Yeah, I definitely don't think I took the optimal line there. I think I should have had at least 1 more card in my hand. I have an answer here for the Hive of the Eye Tyrant, which is good. I don't want to Gearhulk into Rona's Vortex because then they just get the Swift End. But I get the Tainted Indulgence here, draw 2, discard 1 to start filtering through. But my opponent does just have another Swift End. Man, a Murderous Rider, it definitely just gets a lot of value. I have the Takanuma to get back a Torrential Gearhulk or Shieldred the Apocalypse, which I think in this matchup, based on the cards I've seen, I'm going to want to get Shieldred. But, okay, so especially since my opponent has a Shieldred, but I also kind of get this thing where I think I can meat hook for 5, and maybe just taking the 2 from the Shieldred isn't a big deal. So this is probably where I should meat hook for 5. So yeah, just take my 2 on the chin, just meat hook for 5, and just clear the whole board. I still think Shieldred was maybe the better threat here. But Gearhulk could possibly close the game out. I could use it for a negate later, so it's obviously useful. Opponent Signs in Blood, trying to draw gas, goes to 7. I feel like really good here, right? So I'm at 21. My opponent's at 7, but then I get Invoked Despaired, and then my opponent Thought Seizes my Gearhulk, right? So my opponent is down to 5. Now I'm at 17. I still think there's room for life here. I get a Consider here. I am firing up the Hive. Hit the Shieldred, so my opponent, because I imagine they have Takanubas and can get it back. My opponent is at 2. They can't Sign in Blood themselves, but they do get a Graveyard Trespasser now to hit my Torrential Gearhulk and my Shieldred the Apocalypse because it's nighttime. So they're going to 4, so I can only put them to 1 with my Hive. I get a Chrome Host Seedshark here, so I know I'm going to have another threat in play. The trick here is that playing the Chrome Host Seedshark, if they kill it, then I now only have a... then that's another thing the Graveyard Glutton can hit. So I maybe shouldn't have played the Chrome Host here because my opponent reasonably can't go... I mean, it gave me a thing to sacrifice there. The Graveyard Glutton, really stinks there. Because now they can just block my Hive of the Eye Tyrant. So I cycle here, go for the throat. I actually go for the third just so I can pitch my Lutri, which is a big losing play there. I don't know why I did that. It makes it daytime, but it sets up my opponent to invoke Despair me, hit me for 5, attack with the Graveyard Glutton, and hit my Lutri, put me to... Okay, so put me to 4, right, because you take 6. Um, yeah, so pitching my Lutri there was definitely... I think there's a lot of ways I lost that game. And that really stinks because that was winnable, and I just punted big time. And thinking about Mono Black, I should have thought about Invoke Despair in the long run, and I didn't plan around it, so I just started putting things onto the battlefield. Definitely a mental pun on my part, and also just a testament to how good Graveyard Trespasser is as a threat. So, we're 1-1 in this match, and let's just see how Game 3 plays out. So here we are at Game 3 in this match. I'm like 4 minutes behind my opponent, and I realize now that they have Graveyard Trespassers because I completely, wasn't considering that in Game 2. And so I bring in a Ritual of Soot, and I take out Search for Azcanta because thinking about Invoke Despairs, they might just clean it up and it doesn't do anything for me. Maybe should have kept that and boarded out something else, but that's what I did. Looking at this hand, it's a 1-lander, which sucks. It does have Consider and Opt, which definitely makes me, want to consider keeping it. But I ship it, and now I see another 1-lander that doesn't have any of my 1-mana cantrips. So obviously ship that. And now we see on the play, I now have a 1-lander that just has Opt. I'm not going to go any farther than 5. So this is the hand I'm going to keep. And I keep the 2-mana spells and just hope that I'm going to find my next land. Looking at that 5 just makes me wish I had kept a 7. And now they Thoughtseize, I Opt. I'm just going to bend the power word, scry the power word kill, try to find another land. It ends up being a Shadow's Verdict. They take my Tainted Indulgence, so I still don't have any more way to dig. Second draw step, second draw, I get an Extinction Event. So that's still not what I'm looking for. My opponent's just still drawing cards. And now we're 8 cards deep. Haven't seen the second land. We have Negate and Behold the Multiverse. My opponent clings again. Definitely respecting the Torrential Gearhulk. I think my deck doesn't really have that much graveyard synergy. But now they duress, take the Behold the Multiverse, because if I ever get a land and can tuck that, it's really good. My opponent curves into the Graveyard Trespasser. Man, like, just watching this game fall apart because I can't find my second land. So we're on the 10th card, and I find a Castle Vantress. If only my first land were an island. But so far, we got nothing. My opponent can't really hit anything, so despite only having, a 1-lander on turn 5, I'm still at 16. So I didn't draw a black source. I drew a way to get a black source, though. But, so my opponent is going to come at me for 8 minimum here. So I'm going to go to 6. And I know that I have to top deck something here. It starts by me getting a swamp. I'm very dead, I think, no matter how you cut it. But I start with a go for the throat here. And I think I'm looking, and I think I'm at a reasonable 5 here. Because my opponent can hit the Shieldred, and then I get hit for 4, I'm at 1. So this is okay. Like, despite everything that has gone wrong in this game, I am alive at 1. And like I could possibly stabilize here with an Extinction Event. But my opponent didn't even exile their own Shieldred. So I think I took the greedy line here and cast my own Shieldred. Which now they kill that and then attack. They have 2 creatures to exile. That was my own greed there, for sure. I should have just Extinction Event, cleaned up their Graveyard Glutton, and then hoped that there was another way out. But them's the breaks. So 1-1, and I'll see y'all in match 3. So here we are in round number 3, and now I'm 3 for 3 on die rolls, so that's awesome. And I open an absolute banger of a hand. I can start on Search for Azcanta. I mean, hopefully if my opponent's deck isn't going too fast, that's something I can get value off of. If not, I can curve Power Word, like Censor, Power Word Kill, Sinister Sabotage. I can do a lot before I even put Search for Azcanta into play. So obviously keeping 7 here. My opponent, mulligans to 6. And so I'm just going to start Fetid Pools and pass. Opponent's on a Stomping Ground and a Llanowar Elves. So I just have to assume like my opponent's on some kind of boat. But I think if they're going to go 3, I can Censor here. But I get real punished here when my opponent just cast a Burning Tree Emissary into a Burning Tree Emissary. My Censor looking really terrible here. But I do get to catch them by censoring the Nissa. And now I'm looking at my opponent is on some kind of red-green Convoke deck, which is, I will say, sick. But we're just gonna have to see how they play out. Now that I'm looking at getting hit for 5, my opponent just has 2 lands in play, so I'm kind of just good to power word kill something here. If I think they're a Convoke deck, I want to minimize the number of creatures they have anyway. So they put an Elvish Mystic into play, and they have 1 card left in hand, and I know I have Sinister Sabotage, Treasure Cruise. I can Extinction Event and just leave them with a Burning Tree Emissary here, but I choose not to do that. I think I'm just waiting for them to cast the big thing so I can Sinister Sabotage. I would think this turn, after I see that the big thing is not going to come, that I would just Extinction Event, clean them up. They have a Burning Tree, 2 cards in hand, just going to put the Elvish Mystic right back out into a Torch Courier. Makes me really wish I had held that Extinction Event until, I saw 2 more 1-drops. But my opponent, mad discipline, didn't play into anything like that. I have Rona's Vortex. I have a Sinister Sabotage if they're going to play something. It's fair here that I can just bury the Burning Tree Emissary. I'm just taking 2. I'm at 8. That's a reasonable number. And now I'm going to jam the Search for Azcanta. I have Sinister Sabotage in hand. If my opponent doesn't do anything, I Moment of Truth and keep digging for gas. And Moment of Truth is sick with Treasure Cruise because it's going to add 2 more cards. I Sinister Sabotage, dump the Bloodchief's Thirst because I know I'm going to flip the Search for Azcanta here. Dump the Saw coming because my opponent has no cards in hand. The counterspell is not worth a lot. But then I find the Ritual of Soot as my next draw and get to Treasure Cruise. So I'm very much in the driver's seat at this point in the game. So I'm holding Moment of Truth, cut down, Chrome Host, Seedshark. So next turn, I can just put the Chrome Host into play and then just start making things. So my opponent, very smartly, scoops it up. Red-Green Convoke, not a deck I see a whole lot of, but we're going to talk about some sideboard, and I'll see you in game number 2. Here in match 3, game 2. Sideboard here, if my opponent's doing the Red-Green Convoke thing, I know they're trying to play the Big Dome Dinosaur, so I cut Negate, I cut Search for Azcanta because it's slow, I cut Narset, I cut Shark Typhoon, I cut Shadow's Verdict because it's a very slow sweeper, and I bring in Thoughtseize to maybe take the payoff they're trying to get to. I take Aether Gust because that obviously is very good. Noxious Grasp because it hits green things, and I knew they had Nissa Voices into Car, so it just gives me another good answer to that. I bring in a Kalidas because against these red-green aggro decks, Kalidas ends up being a nail in the coffin for them a lot of the time. So that one's a lot of fun. And I bring in a Path of Peril. And on the draw, I open up a banging 7. So let's run it and see how we play through. Obviously, if my opponent starts turn 1 Elf, I could Bloodchief's Thirst it. I don't think I'm gonna Bloodchief's Thirst the Torch Courier. I don't think that makes a whole lot of sense. I probably get more value in just playing the tapped Watery Grave and saying go, but I draw a Fetid Pool, so I get to play that instead. Now we see the War Master, much better Bloodchief's Thirst target, so that definitely seems like where we should go there. On my next turn, definitely curving nicely into my lands, but instead, I don't know, I'm just opting to let them get value if that's what they're going to want to do here. My opponent has a Lair of the Hydra, and I have the Field of Ruin now, which is sweet. Aether Gusting, knowing that my opponent tried to play an Elf. So I have value here. So I'm going to go ahead and just Bloodchief's Thirst the Elvish War Master. Because my opponent, I do believe... okay, they put the Limit Speaker on bottom, but the Bloodchief's Thirst and the War Master, I guess my opponent's hand did not have a whole lot going for it, because they just chose to concede the game. I think this is a matchup where my deck is usually very well advantaged. So it was a quick one, but the hand curved out well, and I think we're seeing an example that a lot of the cards since we've gotten to the card pool that we're at in Pioneer are good replacements for each other. So far we're playing well. we haven't seen Lutri do anything more, but just be a 3/2 body. So let's go into round 4 and see what we can do. All right, what's up? This is round 4. I am now 4 for 4 on die rolls. Can you dig it? So looking at this opening hand, it's very slow. Narset and the possibility to cast a Shadow's Verdict. Maybe this is okay. It is like lands that do things, so I'm not instantly opposed to keeping this. My opponent keeps 7, I keep my 7. Just start on Hall, and we're just gonna see how the hand plays out. I see Advantage into Voldaren Epicure. So we go from playing against the red-green Convoke deck in round 3 to playing against the red-white Convoke deck in round 4. And my opponent is off to a banging start, but I do have the Make Disappear for the Gleeful Demolition, which is a good spot to be in. I'm really glad that I drew a card on time. Way to go, deck. Thank you very much. So my opponent hits me for 2. I'm not having a bad time. Starting Field Ruin here, but my opponent, Gleeful Demolitions, having a second Gleeful Demolition in hand, that's just a good life for them. My opponent's going to play and not quite flip Legion's Landing this turn. But they are going to, convoke out the Knight Errant for, full cost. So my opponent definitely off to a great start. On turn 3, they did the thing they're trying to do, and they get double Bushwhacker. So I'm what they call in danger. So I'm just gonna Field Ruin and try to get where I'm going here. I have a cut down, which isn't gonna do a whole lot for me. But I'm just gonna Narset, try to turn this into another card. And I see Fatal Push, not terrible. The counterspell was not going to do a whole lot for me there. But I know my opponent's going to try to Bushwhack here. Or at least that's what I think they're going to do. But instead they're going to Venerated Loxodon. Cut down still kills whatever. But they get the Venerated Loxodon into cast Bushwhacker, which is brutal here. Because now I'm set to take... cut down kills the Bushwhacker, which is kind of convenient. But that's a grand total of 12. And what really stinks here is that even if I cast the Shadow's Verdict and clean everything else up, I'm looking at a pair of 4/4s. And, where I'm from, that means I'm dead. I find the Ritual of Soot off the Narset, but that still means I'm dead. I cast it for funsies. And, wow, my opponent just had the start that, Red-White Convoke really wants to have. Let's take a look at my sideboard and see what I have to combat this. We're here in game 2. And so we're going to cut the dirtly blue cards that don't do anything. So we're going to take out Search for Azcanta. We're going to take out Narset Parter Veils. We're going to take out Siphon Insight. Obviously not the matchup for that here. We're going to take out a Cling to Dust. My opponent's graveyard not doing anything. We're going to bring in the black cards that do things. So we're going to bring in Thoughtseize. We're going to bring in Path of Peril, Ray of Enfeeblement, Noxious Grasp. And I really probably should have found a couple of other things to cut to bring in Shieldred and Kalidas, but I didn't do that. So we brought in the Lord of the Ground board wipe. That's what Path of Peril is for. And then, some good removal spells. And Thoughtseize to take away the payoff. I open up Watery Grave, Thoughtseize, Bloodchief's Thirst, which I don't hate, but I hesitate to believe that this is the hand I keep, which is factual. I don't keep that. But then I mulligan into a 6-lander instead. So I just have to hope this Thoughtseize is good. And I take the Bushwhacker, because that, from the hand I saw, is the payoff. Maybe I could have taken the Burning Tree Emissary. Maybe in retrospect is maybe what I do here. But so I hope that I just don't continue to draw lands, which is the only thing I can really hope for. And right on time I draw an 8-mana card that's going to take a long time for me to cast. My opponent's an Epicure Blood token. I haven't seen a Gleeful Demolition yet. My opponent goes Burning Tree into a Burning Tree. Love that. And if my opponent somehow also picked up another Bushwhacker in this couple of draw steps, I'm just not having a great time. My opponent Breaks the Blood was one of the Burning Tree mana, which makes sense. Probably have too many lands in hand. This deck operates really well on like 2 to 3 lands anyway. So I'm down to 14, hoping to not draw a land, hoping to draw a card that does something. Instead I draw a Pathway and I pick up Lutri. So Lutri is about to show off blocking mode. So my opponent has Clarion Spirited into Thraben Inspector, so gets to make a Spirit. My opponent's going very wide, and all I can hope for is Path of Peril off the top of the deck, or I'm probably going to die. Um, I actually have a few sweepers. I could Meat Hook, like Path of Peril is an out, Meat Hook Massacre is an out. My opponent has so many evens, the Extinction Event's an out, Ritual of Soot, obvious out. Um, so I have a lot of outs at this point, and all I draw is a Go for the Throat, which I'm staring at 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9. So I go for the Throat, one of the 2/2s, and then take 7, go to 2, which is still not pristine health for me for sure. I know I'm still my opponent's 1 land away from being able to Ramunet rooms here, so I'm very dead anyway. That's just the deck, not really cooperating. On one side, in match 3, completely controlled the Convoke style deck. On this side, just completely got ran over by it. So that puts us at the pivotal moment in this 5-match spread here, right? We're 2-2. We're gonna go into match 5, and we're gonna hope to see Lutri do something, and then to just give it our best effort here and put on a show. So we did it. Lutri may not have won us matches, but man, we're 5-0 in die rolls. So let's see how we're rolling out through here. So this is a pretty fine opening hand. It's a 3-lander. I have Moment of Truth, Siphon Insight, Negate. If I think I'm playing like a mid-range type matchup, this is awesome. But my opponent starts on Plains Kithian, so that plan instantly sucks. So now we're just seeing how do I possibly recover the way I need to in this game. My opponent goes right into Thalia, so I got a Moment of Truth. Take the Ritual of Soot, even though I'm gonna be a land away from even using that. So I'm gonna have to draw it. But if there's anything my hand is my deck has done in a lot of matches is draw me some lands. So I guess I'm just really leaning into that and hoping I get value out of the Make Disappear here, which I choose not to do. I think that's got to be the biggest punt that I didn't counter the Coppercoat Vanguard. I'm not really concerned about the Dauntless Bodyguard. Technically, it could save a creature when I go to Ritual of Soot, but I'm still 2 turns away from knowing I'm going to be able to do that, and I'm taking 5 politely to the face. So let's see. My opponent then plays Athalia's Lieutenant, so this is getting worse for me. It's getting worse by the minute, and they're going to flip Kithian here. The best I can do is cycle Shark Typhoon. I have 2 licks at a land. I'll chump block because my opponent has 8, 12, 15. So I can take 4 out of the equation and go to 1. Okay, there's the Shieldred's Edict. Not it. 1 more draw step. So I'm going to go 1. 1 more draw step. Big whammy. What do we got? And survey says, we didn't get there. Game ended. So I didn't even need to really go to a draw step because my opponent has Gideon. I can't clear that up. My opponent has Mutavault. Can't clear that up. I was effectively and sincerely dead from every angle. So let's get to the sideboard and let's see if we can put together a meaningful game 2 in this match. So we're in game 2 against mono white humans, and so we're gonna take out the things that are slow. Negate stinks, Narset stinks, Siphon Insight stinks, Search for Azcanta stinks, Torrential Gearhulk way too slow. If I get the luxury of casting Torrential Gearhulk, that game is already over. So I'm going to bring in Thoughtseize to maybe take away something that I don't have a good answer for. Ray of Enfeeblement, Noxious Grasp, Path of Peril, and Cletus. I could have also brought in Shieldred. My opponent's not going to have Brutal Cathar's post-board. I don't really have creatures in my deck. There's nothing good for them to hit. So I should have more of those creatures in the match, and I didn't bring them in. But no, those 5 cards, pretty solid sideboard. And I open up a decent hand, 2 lands. I can Censor, I think reasonably. So this seems like a fine one to fire off. And I just believe in the heart of the cards, and I'll draw another land. I am playing with 26 lands instead of the 25 that I usually play. So because I'm not playing as many 1 mana cantrips. So I do have that extra land to hope to hit what I need here. My opponent starts on Hopeful Initiate. Definitely, I think they're better 1 mana creature to have. I guess Kithian is their best 1 mana creature. But starting on Dauntless Bodyguard when you don't have anything to protect kind of stinks. Getting to fire off Censor on Coppercoat Vanguard here, because I absolutely learned my lesson about not countering that card. We are in a good spot. We're moving forward. My opponent does have a Mutavault, which is the bane of my existence. But no, we're gonna take our 1 and we're gonna keep moving forward. Got my 3rd land drop, so I know and even my 4th land drop. So I'm on my way to getting to cast this Ritual of Soot. I'm holding up some interaction. I can only drown a 1-drop, but my opponent plays Wedding Announcement here, which kind of stinks to be on this end of it. It's a very good card, but it's definitely just not what I think I'm overly worried about here. I probably let them put a few creatures onto the board before I worry about ritualing. And Thoughtseizing taking Thalia's Lieutenant here is so massive, because now I can get set up to like Lutri and maybe like get to pull off a double day through time. I think that's what I'm playing towards. My opponent has jammed a few nice things onto the board here. After taking the Thalia's Lieutenant, they still have a Coppercoat Vanguard getting in swing for 8, which is brutal. But I know I have the Ritual of Soot, so I'm feeling good here. What's sick is getting Kalitas down and then ritualing. So we're, but I make the respectable play and just ritual first, and I'm just gonna take 2 to the face and say thank you. May I have another? If I draw 6 land, I can Kalitas, hold up, drown, which feels pretty good. I don't know, Moto's just feeling laggy. I don't know, it's definitely not moving the way I want it to. I drew a Sinister Sabotage, not where I really want to be, but putting Kalitas onto a board against a deck that I don't feel like has any good answers to it, it's a good spot to be in. My opponent is now no longer attacking in because I'm going to gain 3, but definitely playing an activating Recruitment Officer and saying Adeline in my future isn't great. But I know I have Sinister Sabotage and Drown, and I can use both. So I can drown something here and still Sinister Sabotage later. So this is a good spot. And the Field of Ruin for the Mutavault. We're really firing on all cylinders here. And I can not yet. So I have enough mana to cast the Dig Through Time. I don't have enough mana to Lutri the Dig Through Time. And I think in my head that's what I'm playing towards, because, man, I do want to show that off so much. Invasion of Gobakon is not what I want to see here, so that's getting drowned. Knowing that my opponent still had Adeline in hand, I maybe should have fired off the Sinister Sabotage there. But I definitely wasn't doing my ultimate thinking there for sure. So I'm just going to dig through time. We're just going to do the respectable thing. And we're going to find 2 wonderful magic cards. Bloodchief's Thirst on a land. I think it's about as good as I can get, because I can Lutri the Bloodchief's Thirst here. And I think that is fine. So I'm going to get the Bodyguard and I'm going to get the Recruitment Officer. So they're going to get to activate the Recruitment Officer one more time. That's okay. But I'm going to get 2 zombies. So I like the position that is going to put me in. It also puts me in a position where I can start attacking, because I'm going to have 3 bodies on board. So I think at this point, I feel very in control of the game. So I have no complaints. Also, I have a Sinister Sabotage up, so that when they go to cast that Adeline, I can just counter it and call it a day. This is one of those examples of Wedding Announcement's a good Magic card, I guess, but if you just don't have the creatures on board, yeah, it keeps making them. But if your opponent can answer them, you just have a thing that makes your creatures bigger. There's a point in the game where it's very good, and I think that's in the early game. But in the late game, I don't feel like it gives you that much value. And on turn 8, basically on turns 5 through 8, I felt like I had pretty much total control of that game. So, as is tradition, we are 2-2, and then we're playing for we're playing for the 3-2, match 5, game 3. I'll see you in that game. Let's see if I can bring it home for the 3-2. Match 5, game 3. I have the lands to cast a Path of Peril in my hand, and I have a Kalitas, so I'm firing this one off. Let's see if the cards I have is enough to stem the aggression of the mono white humans deck. My opponent starts on Kythian. Definitely, kind of wish I had 4 copies of Fatal Push in my deck for this match. But that is how the cookie crumbles there. My opponent has Recruitment Officer, so we have 6 power on the board at turn 2, and I'm staring at this Path of Peril, really hoping I get to it. My opponent on their turn 3 goes for Adeline. I just have to clean one of them up. I know that Path of Peril is not going to deal with Adeline here, so that stinks. My opponent, because they're attacking with 3 creatures, do get to flip to Kythian. Dim combat, yep. So we're going to see Kythian flip here. So my opponent, I think, has... okay, so they didn't flip to Kythian. Maybe it's not how it's worded. But my opponent basically had the perfect start, right? So you have Kythian set up, you have Meter Vault, and you have Adeline. I have a Power Word kill that can maybe hold off some of this. But I'm taking, 4, 5, 6, 7 to the dome to 6. I think I absolutely just have to jam Kalitas here. But I don't. Interesting selection that I don't, and instead I opt to go to 5. I assume my plan here is to cling to dust one of their creatures, but they're going to flip Kythian here. So I, in retrospect, am not certain why I didn't jam Kalitas there. I mean, I don't think Adeline becomes too big to be a problem. Kalitas, I think, stabilizes me. They have 2 Meter Vaults, and they're going to be able to activate Gate. I punted this game so hard. Man, I guess we're putting Kalitas into play, and my opponent could swing for possible 1. Gideon becomes a 4/4, so it's 5 plus another 9. 4 is 9. So my opponent swings for 9. I gain 3, so I'm at theoretical 7. I am very, very dead. I just have to hope my opponent forgets how to activate lands and Gideon. So that's 5, yeah, that's 9. This is no bueno for the home team. Man, I don't think I put myself in a position to win this game. I think I let Lutri down. And, wow, 2-3, and I'm going to have to talk about this in the wrap-up. So we're here with the wrap-up. This was my first shot at Taming of the Brew. My funny little Shakespearean take on brews here. And, Lutri was fun. I thought the fact that this deck still played really consistently, I mean, I only got a 2-3, but played really consistently despite only having a single copy of any non-land card. I was actually really impressed. Things I would change that didn't end up working in my favor. Search for Azcanta should probably be a sideboard card. I just played way too many fast matchups for it to be in the main deck. I would actually cut the cancels. You don't need Sot Coming or Sinister Sabotage. I think having more 2-mana interaction is probably better. And I was looking at so the idea was that I would have more cards that help me get card selection. But I think I would either play Tainted Indulgence or Moment of Truth. Having both, probably not the best. Make room for Thoughtseize and Duress in the main deck. I think just having more 1-drops would have been better off. Yeah, I think those are the changes I would make. This was Taming of the Brew. I'm Mark from Team Primetime. Follow us on Instagram, Twitter. around your local game stores where you can hang out with us. And most of us are really cool, I guess, or at least good people to hang out with. If you like Control content, like, comment, subscribe. Check out all the other videos. We're doing pretty good about getting a new video up every 3 days. If there's anything particular you'd like to see, let us know, and I look forward to seeing you in the next one. It probably won't be a Taming of the Brew. I'll probably play something more meta-centric, but I look forward to showing you my brainstorms in real time. So y'all take care, and I'll see you in the next one.